According to the recording of this meeting, I'm calling to order the meeting of the drafting committee on Friday, June 25th at 5:07 p.m. So we have all 6 members of the committee present, so we definitely have a quorum. So what I'd like to do is, before you all came on, Commissioner Niles and I were having a discussion about the ethics provisions, and we can come back to that a little later. I kind of wanted to go in order of which these are called out in that cover resolution and just decide if we think they're advanced to the point now where it's good, we just have to have somebody, and maybe Tina or somebody, format these so they are presentable on Monday. But if we think they're ready to go, let's just move on. I think there's a couple that will need a little bit more discussion. So I'm going to share my screen and
Chuck, I just got off the phone with Greg Kimsey, and he is suggesting that we look at how, and it's on the website, he'll send me the link and I'll take a look at it, but that we craft the resolutions more like what the City of Vancouver did. I have not looked at City of Vancouver, so I can't really react to it right now. But anyway, he strongly felt that we should put it in the format that City of Vancouver did.
okay, I guess I'd like to see that because I'm comfortable.
I think he's going to send it to you too.
Yeah, I'm comfortable using a template from a county, that a charter county
Right.
that just did it.
Yeah, and I think and until I view what City of Vancouver, I don't know if anybody else has or not, their resolutions, but it's on Greg's website. I guess the ballot language. And I agree. We've been using Clallam County for our template all along. So, but he seems to be having a issue there.
What does he think? What does he think the issue is with the Clallam County template that we're using?
I didn't really get a chance to go into detail a lot because I was trying to get things ready for me and he was calling me just before. I have a lot of things that happen behind my screen that just with family life and all that stuff that I gotta make sure everybody is in their positions so that I don't have to worry about them. He did mention that he felt the resolution attachment is different from the resolutions. So I haven't had a chance again to look at that. And
okay, I guess I'm not sure. Is he saying that? Because I noticed that I was interchanging exhibit and attachment, and wanted to make sure that we just call them exhibits because that's what Clallam County called them.
Yeah.
And then try to make sure that the titles of the proposed amendments match between what's in the cover resolution and the actual exhibit.
Yeah, I that was his comment. I haven't gone back to match things, so but if you feel it's all matched, and again, I asked him to CC both of us so that we can
I think it's 94.6% matched.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So anyway, I guess, does anybody else have any comments on this draft of the resolution? I have sent this to Chris Cook ahead of time to get at least in her queue to review. So if we have any changes, get them on the table now.
Greg also told me, which is a surprise to me, that there is a resolution manual out there or something that they have, and he seemed to be surprised that Chris didn't know about it, and if course, Greg's attorney is Amanda, so she probably would know about that information. But I guess that's sort of news to me. So hopefully he'll send that
All right.
information to us too to see if how we've the
Well,
process that we have. I sure would like to have this book 4 months ago.
yeah,
See,
so we have to go with what we have in hand, and
yeah,
Clallam County, to me, was a good example of having something in
I
hand.
agree.
So anyway, I'm gonna, if nobody else had any comments on this, I think Doug, you and I probably just need to work through the format and the form.
Okay,
But whatever we do, it has to land on Chris Cook's desk on Monday. Because it's still draft. I mean, it's got draft watermark, and we know that's
right,
subject
right.
to change. I am going to move to, is the minor corrections and technical clarification showing up on your
Yeah,
screens?
yeah.
All right.
I saw I didn't see your email until it's just about an hour ago or so. So I didn't realize that you wanted uh, not Article 10, but Article 11. I put in, I changed
Well, let's
Article 10
back
to
up a
Article
bit,
11.
because I think people are wondering, what the heck are you talking about?
Okay.
So one of the things that's been of discussion this week is the Article 10 in the original charter, which is transitional provisions. Um, there was a little phrase in section 9.7 that said essentially, once the charter's been amended, Article 10 goes away. And so the question is, because there's at least one, if not other, proposals here that need to have a transitional provision. I went and researched Snohomish County's charter, and they actually had the same issue that we did. They essentially took Article 10 and made it vacant. So if you look at their charter page, it's blank. But then they added an Article 11, which is the new stuff. And Chris Cook today said she likes the idea of having Article 10 just go away and have Article 11 basically introduce and allow for coding of the new stuff, which probably is clear as mud. All right, so that, I'm sorry, Doug, I just wanted to let people know what
Sure.
we're
No problem.
chatting about. All right, so go ahead and,
Um, well, the last version I had, and I know my clarity committee is been getting I think I'm up to draft 5E. I've decided
okay, because you sent me draft 4 just this afternoon.
draft
So
4.
that was the version that you sent me was,
We're at 5E. I'll send it to you if you
okay,
haven't got it.
I'm just saying yeah, draft 4 is what is on screen and what you sent me this afternoon.
Oh, I get so many drafts. I may be picking up the wrong thing.
All
Uh,
right,
uh,
so we are
let
going
me.
to need to settle on this, because this is what's going to get put into draft ballot language, hopefully by Monday.
Uh, I think I have two members of the committee here. I think on clarity, aren't you, Deanna? Aren't you on clarity? Yeah, and Chris is. Um, I didn't get any feedback from the last version that I sent out to everybody, so I assume it's okay. Um, I just sent it out the last night, so I don't know if people had a chance to look at it.
So
Do you want me to send it to you? Right.
now, let's just go with this one. We're kind of all over the place now.
Yeah, it's
Um,
basically 9.7 and 10, and the changes that I made. I didn't change it. I could have, I'll just change it to Article 11 because that's what it is now.
So there's one. I guess the first one is financial administration. Looks like you've added in a couple of new
No, that
subsections.
no, those are what we have had since the beginning. I just couldn't get rid of that. I can't figure out how to get rid of that highlight there on B. I just don't
Well,
know.
the highlight's easy. I can get rid of that, but the
Yeah.
underlined part means new text.
Yes. Basically, what we did was take the RCW is already in the charter. We felt that in order to just throw RCWs at citizens trying to understand, then they have to go back and figure out what that RCW is all about. So we put it in there for an explanation of what it is and what it does.
What's the
So
current text say?
uh, I'll let me. I got to get
So
the
what we need
original.
to make sure is that these are technical amendments and corrections. If we're changing, we need to
No,
use
it
the strike through underline
right,
format.
right. I'll have to pull that up here in a second here.
Well, okay. Are you suggesting that these two subsections are being replaced in their entirety?
I I I think I hear what you're saying. I should have put a cross out on B and C where it just says RCW and putting in the whole thing, um, which explains what the RCW is, uh, like I did for E. Um, Let me just try to just
All right,
get to
so
this.
I'm gonna kind of put this back to the clarity or whatever the heck you're calling your committee now. Can you maybe look at how um, this should be referenced in strike through underline
Yes,
mode?
yes,
It's
I could
placing
get
it
that
in
cleaned up
clarity.
or make that easier to see here. I'm just trying to jump to I have a copy here of the charter as it sits right now on my. I'm just trying to look that up here.
Oh, all right, I'm gonna put this back on the clarity committee to revise that part of this. Another question I had is this getting rid of the salary 20% boost for the chair. How is that a technical correction?
Um, well, because it would no longer apply.
Under this provision? Remember, these are all have to be standalone amendment proposals. So if it's related to the districts, that has to be handled under the district amendment, not under the clarity amendment.
Okay, that did you do that in the district amendment? I
Yeah,
okay,
yes, and you'll
because
see
see,
that.
we wrote this before you did yours, so I just didn't
Okay,
know. So
so
this probably needs to just be standalone then.
yeah, it has to be
Okay,
standalone. These
okay.
all have to be
I
standalone
yeah, I
proposals.
didn't compare what you had in the district to the
Yeah,
clarity. I haven't done that yet.
all right. Um, and then you got the don't split precincts clause put in there. And then this codification, yeah, this is the one I think we're still trying to figure out the correct wording. Um, and I think,
Oh,
and this is where,
yeah, that's the latest one. This is the latest one, Chuck.
so Article 10 basically goes away, and there's a new Article 11, which if you look at Snohomish County's charter, they kind of formed it as transitions from what was in the current charter to the amendment, and then they put in a codification section at the end that basically says to the code publisher, whatever gets approved by the voters, put them all together and make sure they're in the charter, because of the fact that these are all standalone measures.
Yeah, ours was in 9.7. So
Yeah, and it,
did you want to just
I
put
would,
that in 10
I would almost leave
or 11?
that
Where we
first sentence in there and then just get rid of the second one, and um, we just add a new Article 11 that's, um, I think what you're referring to in here
It's 10.
is, yeah, it's it's referring to Article 11. So I think that should pass muster.
Uh, yeah, you lost me there. So you're saying you want to take
No, I think what you are saying, I think, reflects the discussion we've been having this week and what Chris Cook suggested, although she
right?
suggested, so all this stuff about section 10,
Yeah.
that's in the article that goes away.
Uh, this is I incorporated everything in the Snohomish one in this. Some of Snohomish writing was not uh, in sync with what we had in our charter, but
All
I
right.
synced it up as best as I could. Um, but so we could just cross out and say, instead of section 10, just say section 11 and take out all of section 10. So which means I have to move some of these back into a section 10 because we've taken them all out, whether we're calling it
Yeah.
11 or 10. So
All right.
I
So that-
just seems to me that if you're going 1 through 11 and you don't have a 10, people will wonder what happened to 10.
Well, and in Snohomish County, it's just you click on 10 and there's nothing there. It's blank,
Right.
or what we call vacant or reserve.
So I just I think when I was working on this, I was under trying to make it work under all the changes under 10, but we could
And you might
take
want to
that.
change this date to 2022, because any charter amendments take effect January 1st, 2022.
Okay.
So that would put the prosecuting attorney at a little bit of a back to the future disadvantage here.
So should we say on or about?
Well, I'd go back and look at what the original charter did. I don't
Well,
think we
it did.
gave
All I did was
it.
change it to from
All right, so give
because it was
them
14.
until December 31st, 2022. Because it basically, the
Yeah.
charter
Yeah.
gave
Yeah.
them a full year
Right.
to get the codes revised.
Okay.
All right, so I think Doug, you and Chris are on the Clarity Committee.
And Deanna.
Okay, so if the three of you could kind of do what you need to do to modify this based on what we've discussed, um, can you do so by maybe midday on Monday?
Yeah.
'Cause I really would like to try to package these and get,
Yeah. I could probably do it tonight or
uh,
tomorrow. And send it out to the committee and Chris and Anna and Anthony
all
and
right,
Eric could all take a look at it.
okay. Any other questions on
And
what
Kelsey, I think. No. Yeah.
will be Exhibit A from anybody? All right,
Uh,
Exhibit B. is the executive county elected offices.
Um, on on this, I did get one comment feedback from one of my committee members, feeling that, and I thought I'd send it to you in the explanation area, uh, on the uh, last um, on the second paragraph. It says the last sentence. It says, except for county, all other local elected officials. And uh, I had, and you should have a copy of it. And I know we've sent a lot of copies, and things can get
I have about
confusing.
27 million copies from
Yeah,
you, Fred,
half of them
so
for me, I'm sure. Um, and anyway, he's had suggested that we have a little bit better explanation there, that except for the county executive officers, all other local elected officials in cities and uh, yeah.
okay.
Uh, should you say offices or officers?
Well, these are all,
Oh, they're
well,
they're
yeah, the
offices. They're
title
offices. Yeah,
offices.
yeah, that's fine. Okay, and then anyway, that was the only change uh, that my committee had come back
All right.
with when we did our last look at
Any
this.
other, any other
Yes, one.
questions or changes on B?
Yes, on the explanation in the same sentence, um, except for the count. Oh, wait, are you on B or on oh no, not on B. I'm sorry. I meant C.
Well, I think the reason that you didn't have the term executive in here, it's just except for the county offices, because the county council is also partisan.
Right, right. And we'll get to that one in under
Well,
C.
even though they're not the subject of this amendment, they are still partisan.
Ex, ex, well, the executive admit the
Now, I'm saying that in your explanatory statement, you're saying except for the county executive offices, well, the county council is also partisan.
oh, I wasn't considering them being an executive office.
Well, you haven't said anything about these others. I, again, I would stress that this is just
I,
referring, maybe it's just executive and council office.
okay. I need to find out the last one that I sent you to see if that's the right.
Well,
Uh,
I'm trying to create a truthful statement. And if we leave something out, it's no longer a truthful statement.
okay. Well, I was just referring to the county executive county elected offices.
Right. Well, that's what the amendment's about.
Yeah.
But your explanatory statement, it needs to be correct. And if you leave out,
Okay. I'm fine with that. Yeah. And in C, I was going to just we had put in our suggested that except for the county councilors. Well, but here you're talking about mayors and councilors in cities and towns are nonpartisan. So I should probably
well, okay,
say,
this one, yeah, that one, I think, good.
yeah. I wonder if I should say boards too. All other
Okay.
elected mayors, councilors in cities, towns, and taxing districts. That's a word, taxing districts, because that covers everybody from
But
the
keep
cemetery
in mind that
districts.
this is the clarity part I'm going to bring up. Here we're talking about those that are policymakers.
Well-
not taxing districts.
Well, taxing
And
districts
so-
have policymakers. They have fire
Right,
district
but they don't have
commissioners.
mayors and councilors. And so what this is referring to is
Okay.
the equivalent, the
The
equivalent of
equivalency.
the
Okay.
county is mayors and councilors.
So school board directors are not.
You've covered school
The
board
council.
under executive because that's your special district.
Okay.
Or you could just take that
Okay.
same,
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
sentence and put it down here. But this is purposely worded
That's fine.
so that you're equating, yeah, all right. Any other questions from the committee? Let's go to,
I had just one small piece. I was looking back at the PDF of the charter that we have, and there were a couple like extra spaces or switched letter typos. I wasn't sure, Doug, if you were able to catch those.
I thought
or-
I caught them all. Yeah,
Okay.
you might want to double check in the last email that I sent with the last draft.
you talking if you try to copy from the PDF and put it in a Word document?
No, from the actual PDF itself of the real one. And we can't
And-
copy
and
it
we-
to a Word document and capture all those accurately too. So
Yeah.
I'll do a second check, Doug. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, more eyes on it, the better.
You got it.
All right. Charter review frequency and commissioner terms. Earlier versions of this had a third bullet, which I took out because the third bullet refers to the change that would come about because of going to 5 districts. And so right now, what this is saying, currently, the charter review from here on out is every 10 years. The charter review commissioners are 1 year or until work is completed terms. The amendment changes that to a 5-year process, and this is what I wanted to have a discussion about. This changes it from every 10 years to every 5 years. In the meeting Wednesday, I heard some discussion about just this one changes the next review to 5 years, but leaves the other reviews every 10 years. So I want to get clear as to what it is we're proposing with this. What's your understanding, or what's the intent?
I made that
My
comment in a review meeting about that, and it was never to imply that the intent was changed to be 10 years and then 5 years. It was simply that the change that we had agreed that was drafted was to change it to 10 years, but the next or change it to 5 years. But the next charter review commission can always change it to whatever they want as well.
Okay,
So
so,
just so that wasn't what was quite what was being put out
all
there.
right. So this is basically changing it to every 5 years.
That was my understanding of what we,
All right,
Yeah.
that was our intention.
It,
Yeah.
we sort of punted to the people in 5 years from now can worry about it. And if they want to move it out further, they can.
all right.
5
So,
years from now until eternity, unless they want to change it.
all right. Any other comments on this?
Question, Chuck.
Oh, I want to go, and this kind of refers to something I saw in a markup in the Clarity Committee. You guys got rid of the $25 filing fee.
Yeah.
How is that a clarification?
Is it necessary to put a dollar amount in there when we know that things change, and by just saying there's a filing fee, whatever that filing fee is, that's what you pay.
Well,
So
right
why
now,
stick it at if you say 25, you're
I
it's gonna be 25 for the next 5 years.
want to be careful with that. That you're not just getting rid of the filing fee at all or totally.
No, it
Um,
just gets rid of the dollar amount. It doesn't say if the auditor.
Now I can't even find it. Where the heck is it? 9999? Oh, it's down here. All right, so you're just saying pay a filing fee.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right.
We're trying to make it so that the charter doesn't tie hands when another department has to come up with some other reason to balance the budget.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I totally understand that. Although it would be nice if we hold Greg Kimsey to say it's gonna be $25 even 50 years from now.
We'll be dead.
All right, anything else on charter review frequency and commissioner terms from anybody? And just shout it out. I can't see everybody's box, so I can't see hands.
Chuck, I just had a question. As far as the intent for these, what we're looking at now with these drafts, are we going to toss them out for another close look by anybody, or are we going to put a pin in it after this meeting?
This is a pens down. These will go to Tina to get formatted for our presentation in draft mode on Wednesday. Concurrently, they're being reviewed for legal sufficiency and as to form by Chris Cook. And unfortunately, there wasn't time to do a subsequent review. I've been trying to feed her the little ones like this one. I've already fed her to get comments. I don't know where it's going to end up in her queue. There's just really not any time for another touch with anybody other than packaging these and getting them out to the full commission, hopefully no later than Tuesday morning.
Chuck, I'm available all weekend because I have to stay indoors right now. So.
All right. So I would probably say those that we're not changing, I'm just going to keep as is here and then send them to Tina on Monday morning so she can get them formatted. We're going to keep the draft watermark because, again, this is the first review. But anything that does change, if you could get it to me by, let's say, noon on Monday. All right, I'm going to keep moving unless somebody says otherwise. Let's, Terry, you want to talk ethics now, or do you want to hold that and kind of go and revisit our back and forth discussion later?
Whatever works for you.
All right.
Doesn't
So,
matter. That,
I want to, because you have two versions of this, and I'm going to explain something here. The intent of the ethics subcommittee was to create a proposal and ideally give some structure to the proposal with what it is that it would be amended. And my understanding is that it would be a code of ethics, creating an independent ethics commission or ethics review commission, and then creating an ethics oversight and compliance office. And then there would be, I'm assuming that that office would have the administrative support, which is when I show you my version of this, you'll see where that comes in. And then there's some bullets here as to, I think it's the intent to provide some structure to this proposal. Is that correct, Terry?
yes. And so when I was talking to the rest of the subcommittee who, they were going, and I took out some of that stuff about fines and all these other things. Those are policies, right? And so I did remove some of that. But if there's things in here that we think that could be added to the draft that you put together, Chuck, around the code that are not policy, that are showing a direction. I think the one thing like, managing an ethics hotline, that might be, I think that's something that they want to leave in there. But when I look at the ethics code, like when you look at Pierce County's ethics code and the language that you put together when you started doing some drafting, which I really appreciate, if they just want us to look at it and see that we're not losing the intent of having it. And it is kind of, clear it is clear that we can't write policy, right? We're just going to give them directions.
Yeah,
So
this is a structural document, and this structural document, the charter,
Right.
assigns the authority of policymaking to the county council. And it's actually explicit in Article 2. So, and this is when I wanted to show the others, and why I'm looking at Pierce County as the model for this. Pierce County Charter is really simple. Pierce County Charter says, adopt a code of ethics, and it explains who the ethics code would cover. And also, there is a conflict of interest one, which I actually find kind of fascinating. I'd be interested in that one as well. But then it also says later on in the charter, this is the charter, create an ethics commission, budget it through the office executive. They have an elected executive. We have an appointed county manager. So the equivalent would be office of the county manager, and it remains an autonomous body. The word remains is in there because this actually was created before the charter. And so what the charter is saying, it's going to keep being autonomous, even though it's budgeted by the office of the executive. Now, what I want to do is to show you what's in the Pierce County Code, because the charter sets the structure, council sets the code. And if you remember what I just showed you, the charter says, Pierce County Charter says, write a code. Okay, well, that they did. And the code is actually pretty extensive. This is the Pierce County Code of Ethics that was adopted by the county council. It created a whole set of codes in chapter 3 of the Pierce County Code. But if you notice, they also have ethics commission, enforcement procedures. This also has penalties, and it has all this stuff that you've been talking about wanting in a code of ethics or an ethics oversight process.
Mhm.
So what my proposal does, and what Pierce County's charter did, was they said, okay, we want this charter review commission, or freeholders when they first did this. This is what we want, and what we wanted, kind of the structure that we want to see. Now, county council, you adopt the ordinance that establishes this code. You, county manager, fund it, and you create the ethics review commission, and you have appropriate staff that would support the oversight office and the commission. And it also includes, I didn't put hotline, but what I did here, Terry, was I put in that they would be the one accepting complaints. The structure of how you accept complaints, I think, can be left up to the county manager and the county council to put into rules, procedures, and code. But at this point, it's plain and simple. By July 31st of 2022, adopt a code of ethics. By July 31st, 2022, budget and establish an ethics oversight office and an independent autonomous ethics review commission. That's just plain and simple.
And I do agree right there. And like I said, the committee said, like, and I can take this back to them and explain like a little further about how keeping it plain and simple is good. What we're hoping is that we get an ethics code as good as the Pierce County one.
And
That's
And
very,
we
it's
can't
very
tell
thorough.
county council how to write policy, and that's the
I
thing
know.
with our limitations here. Now, what you could do you could work some of the explanatory text in here. I just didn't have that, so I didn't really write much other than what you had originally, and
Right.
then, and I stuck in there why this is a deal. And it's because of what the current system is, and it is a deal. So it was trying to give some background as to why this is in. The proper operation is kind of a goal. So I would say if you want to, over the next couple of days, take this explanatory statement and maybe what you've put in here for some of the structure, because some of these are policies and some are getting a little too specific as far as structure.
Right.
Maybe try to work some of that into this.
I can do that.
All right.
And
And
do you think it's a good idea to take out that statement you made about the counselors? I forgot in your
oh no,
explanatory.
well, this is again, that's a statement of fact. This is
Okay.
and this is trying to explain why this is being proposed. Um, it gives a little bit of background, and people who really follow county government will realize that yes, this is a system which right now could result in a stalemate and not being able to investigate um, an ethics complaint. And that what we're doing here is changing that so you have an independent process that investigates ethics complaints.
I
So
do like scroll up to your language there. I do.
this
There
one,
you go. Yeah, the proposed. No, that I guess the scroll down. Scroll down to the actual 3.8.13. I do. Okay. Okay. I like that in conjunction with the county manager shall appoint. Okay. So if we just leave it at that, does that mean, because I know on some of our commissions, the county manager picks people and then the county council, you know, approves it?
uh-huh.
Does that need to be spelled out in there? Or does that, or do you think they would just follow their normal policy?
Well, there are 3 commissions spelled out in RCW state statute. That's Planning Commission, Board of Equalization, and Historic Preservation Commission. Those are specifically appointments by the county council that and are reflected in our charter. All other ones, it's appointed by the county manager with confirmation from the council. And I purposely wrote this in here that way to give it an air of independence, that it's not the county council appointing these people, it's the county manager with the county council. I want to go back and look at how Pierce County worded their, actually, let me pull that up. Pierce County in their code got really specific with how, man, there we Pierce County got really specific with the makeup of the charter, the Ethics Review Commission. They said like 4 lawyers. They had a business representative. They have a labor representative because they've extended their code of ethics to staff. I know we have an issue here, and that's why in this we kind of punted it to the county council in their code of ethics ordinance as to how they want to deal with how it applies to staff, because that will take negotiations and ratification with the unions. So it's not easy to do that. This was put in 1980, so I'm not sure if Pierce County is unionized, but
They are.
they are
Yeah,
now. I don't know if
but
they were in 1980.
oh yeah,
I see
very
that
early.
when I went to pull it up, on my own, I see that in 2021, though, they reaffirmed it or something, their code of ethics.
Yeah, they probably did. but
They
again,
had
that's
to.
not a charter thing. That's
Yeah.
their
So,
county
oh, I
government.
thought you were talking about the,
I was
post
just
office.
looking to see how
Okay.
they describe the ethics commission, and they really didn't in there. So what I was suggesting,
And
uh,
then what do you think about, having
did
the
you want to
ethics?
present something, Terry?
What did you think, no, what did you think about having a, like calling it an independent ethics commission? Only because that's a word that people have been my constituents have been throwing at me, is what they would really like is an independent.
You
Okay.
can put independent, but I put autonomous in the in this code language or the charter language.
Okay. Okay, and then, okay, let me think about and ask them if they would, whether it be an independent.
Yeah, independent probably is a more common word used that the average voter would understand versus autonomous.
I know, and
Yeah, well, I used autonomous because that's what Pierce County used.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So
Um,
maybe
But they had
consider,
probably attorney writing it.
yeah.
yeah,
So
and
maybe
I don't know the legal,
Sorry,
I
Deanne.
have to turn to the lawyer in our group as to the legal difference between independent and autonomous. If
Yeah.
there even is one.
Independent versus autonomous.
Yes.
I mean, I see them as very different, but I could see how they sound similar.
Yeah, I see them in the government sense as actually being different.
Yeah.
And I'll explain my understanding. Independent means they have their own costs, their own revenue cycle. They basically create their own policies. They're like an independent government. Autonomous means they can do their work without interference by the county council or the executive. They still are under the provisions of the county though. So I don't know, and I have to turn to better minds than me to see it. I just
Okay,
put
well,
in, yeah,
I guess in the explanatory statement, you say it's uh, independent, impartial, responsible to the people. That you got the word independent there. So
yeah, and I just, again, I used autonomous in here because that's what Pierce County used in their
yeah.
chart.
Deanna, does a autonomous, see, I kind of think independent, the way I think of how independent said is how he thinks autonomous means. So maybe I'm just wrong there.
I think Chuck.
I thought it meant that they acted independent of the council and independent of, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
that
I mean,
was it.
I tend to agree with Chuck's reading of things. They're kind of the same thing, but like in different directions. Like autonomy, an autonomous something is you're granted autonomy to kind of do your own thing versus being independent means that it's not like you've chosen to be independent, but you're choosing to not accept resources or help from other entities is kind of how I view independent. So I might be incorrect, but that's kind of how I view it. And I think that, yeah. So
Okay.
I view the difference being if that word independent was in there, they could go off and write their own rules, procedures, and policies. Autonomous means they can make their ethics review decisions without being interfered with by the county council, but they still can't go write their own rules, procedures, and policies.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
And one
That
other,
makes sense.
One
Yeah.
way. Sorry, go ahead, Doug.
well, I was just thinking too, budget wise, if they decide to say, well, autonomous means that they're within the budget process. Independent, as you say, they may say, well, they're independent, so they could find their own revenue source.
Yeah, they got to go find their own money.
Yeah, and there could be games like that played down the road.
So I figure if Pierce County's used autonomous, why don't we just follow suit and plagiarize? Sometimes
good with
it's
it.
a sincere form of flattery, except when you're writing a thesis.
Did you have something, Chris, that you wanted to ask me?
Yeah. just one way of packaging it, because we have words that have multiple interpretations and meanings that can be used and abused. Instead of saying the independent commission, you can say something like the commission or whatever it is that operates independently of, and that way you can get specificity with just a couple more words by rearranging it without that inclusive, like holistic. It is independent, meaning one of 5 different things. It is a commission that exists in the system that is independent of what is independent of, which is, I think, what gets at the true meaning of the thing. So that's just one option for framing it that can get around that kind of problem where there's confusion over autonomous or independent.
Okay, great. Hey, but I do like leaving independent in the explanatory statement, as Doug pointed out. That would be easy for people to understand.
I don't know. I'm struggling. It sounds like semantics to you, but I'm struggling with it on a legal sense.
Well, I
The
think
autonomous?
keeping it with the elected official. I mean, that's a part of the reason the last blow up occurred in Pierce County was because the county assessor was costing the county treasury a lot of money because of the way he was treating staff, and it was a hostile work environment, and it just got real nasty stuff,
I'm
and he had no
gonna
qualifications
I'm
for the
gonna
job.
flag this and maybe get with Chris Cook on Monday.
Well, did you just change that from what you originally had?
I just had independent and autonomous before.
And what?
And I think I'm gonna go back to the original language because I'm getting lost.
Yeah.
Is it, I don't like what I just added because that means they could just go off and do their own thing.
I agree. I like the original. There was just a question I had about it.
So I'll flag it and get legal counsel opinion on Monday.
I think what the public will want to see, so long as this is probably in the explanatory statement, I think the concern is obviously having an ethics oversight that's not then overseen by the county itself, and so I think that as long as, whether it's autonomous or whatever the word is, as long as we're communicating that this is something to basically give oversight to the county without being overseen by the county council itself, I think that that's really what people want to see.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
And
I
that's why I
think that's-
noted that Pierce County just used the term autonomous. So I'll review this with Chris Cook on Monday just to get her temperature check on that. I'm not a fan of using independent when it comes to these type of procedures,
Well,
but
I didn't realize that you were going to put it in the actual thing. I thought you were just going to leave it in the explanatory statement.
well, frankly, I would like to just leave it in the explanatory statement.
This is not a
That
hill that
doesn't-
I'm going to die on. Yeah, I whatever.
Because the explanatory statement's not what is not what gets written into the charter, it's the
Right.
charter. So if you're
Yeah.
comfortable with just moving forward with the independent part being an explanatory statement.
Yeah.
Question, Chuck.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten a little confused on the purpose of the explanatory statements in this sense right here for this piece. Is it to explain what it is, why it is, or both, and how long is it supposed to be?
I'm not aware that we have a word limitation, but this explanatory statement shows up in the voter guide. And so let me pull up, let's see, I'll pull up Clellum. It's the only one I have open, but I've asked our intern to see if she could find other reviews. Let's see, where is it? All right, so So, for example, here's what they did to make the prosecuting attorney nonpartisan. They gave a little bit of description why it's being done, what it is, and how they intended it to read. And similarly with the frequency of elections. So the message I got from Greg Kimsey is he's not going to change what we send over there other than to make it ballot title friendly. He's probably not going to change our titles at all unless there's something that just is really at odd.
Okay, that's good.
Thanks.
Mhm. Let's see. I think, are we done with equity or
Yeah.
the ethics?
With ethics, and
I don't
I'll
want to be
just
done with equity. No, we can't do that.
So Chuck, do you want me to just take this back, talk to them about everything we talked about, and kind of explain to them that the spirit of what we're trying to do is being met? And then you said something about looking down there and see if there's anything that's not policy that we wanted to be added, or and just
Yeah,
making sure
if
that there is.
anything in these bullets
Yeah.
that you
Okay.
wanted to add into the structure, I've tried to incorporate these.
Yeah, I saw that.
This is a lot of text, so I was trying to
Yeah.
incorporate them structurally into the proposal.
Okay. And then maybe include those, and then if we don't, can we can we include those in the explanatory statement? Not really.
If you can try to do that, and this is why what Chris sent over on what D&I guess it used to be DEI, but now it's D&I. I asked for a couple sentences and I got 4. So I tried to collapse it. So if it's long as it's not creating a really long explanatory statement, I think that might get rejected by Greg Kimsey, but it's also more of when you're got people reading the voter's guide, they're going to look at this for about 10 seconds, then move on to something else.
Okay. Okay. I'll do that. And so I need that back to you before Monday noon, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And thanks for working on that, Chuck. I really
Sure.
appreciate it.
Cool.
All
And
right.
first one, Chuck, I like your adjustments to the proposed ballot measure piece, and I have the latest language for the explanatory statement. I tried to keep it as brief as possible where it says the what and the why. I'll just drop that in the
Alright.
chat. But if we can make it longer, I think there are some things that that Terry wanted to include as well that we could look at if we wanted to have another adjustment to you by tomorrow at lunchtime.
Well, I think with the DEI, I'm still not understanding the dropping of equity, but I've allowed in this process, as I noted in our meeting on Wednesday, that we have a DEI committee set for noon on Monday. And was looking at that kind of finishing the wording here. So I'm okay if you want to kind of chew on it and then come to that meeting on Monday and finalize this.
That sounds good.
I had a question. I'm trying to see. I didn't write down. But it looked like you were talking about DEI officer, and should it be offices or office? Can
Where are we? You
It's
talk
a
about under
department
the actual
with
language?
with an officer is the person that's in charge, so the chief officer of the department. Just like every department has their chief officer.
right? Maybe it's down further.
And I guess I would like to talk about dropping of equity. I'm not quite sure I'm understanding that. because all the different offices that have been created, like City of Vancouver, WSU Vancouver, Clark College, etc., are DEI offices. And so I was wondering if you could kind of give me a little bit more background.
Yeah,
on that.
this came
I
up
can-
with several. Sorry, go ahead, Terry.
No, go ahead. I was the one that actually brought it up, but go ahead. I think I explained it to you pretty well.
You weren't the only one too that has brought this up as well. But the point is the function of equity is still included, and a person appropriately hired for this role would understand that and apply that. But using the word equity is using a word that has become so politically loaded that it automatically shuts some people off and down if they don't actually understand what is being talked about. So some of the thought process was that to have that be in the language would just invite extra conflict and issues, and also turn away a lot of voters that might actually read it otherwise, rather than seeing that one buzzword that is so commonly misunderstood to a point where they wouldn't engage with it fully.
Why don't you just change it to Equal Rights Department?
Not quite the same thing.
Why not? What's different? Why aren't the rights equal?
Because equal rights department is different than diversity. You know, when you're talking about diversity and you're talking about inclusion, that doesn't necessarily, equal rights doesn't cover all
Yeah,
of that.
sort of the makeup of
And
the departments and
So
their
right
staffing.
now, all this does is talks about diversity, and I'm not quite sure what that means, or inclusion. But part of the reason I originally proposed this was equity in terms of treatment in law enforcement, equity in terms of business practices, and equity in terms of disciplinary actions. And I'm not seeing this anymore.
so can I explain now, Chris? Like the
Yeah.
way I brought it up. So we are going through a time where people are misinterpreting what equity means. So we are seeing school boards, we are seeing people attacked for and misinterpreting equity and using it to, and it's not our intent to have that happen with this. And diversity and inclusion, like if you're truly a diverse and inclusive department, then you will have equitable policies, and you will have that.
I'm not sure that's correct. I don't see anything in here about equal rights.
Well, equal is not equitable, Chuck, and so you can't use those two terms together either.
Well,
Right.
yeah, I know that. But right now, what this is saying is celebrate diversity and include people in whatever you're trying to do in your business. But it doesn't say anything about, the systemic racism issue or the law enforcement issues that have been coming up. I don't see how that
And
addresses those that really, in my mind, is what got us to this proposal.
Is
so
that
To point out, this is
policy?
actually included if we scroll down a little bit in the section. It does get into that a little bit. Look, let's see here.
and then after you're done, I wanted to add one more thing.
A2, where it talks about exactly those things. It brings up the equitable treatment and equal rights as a part of a support for diversity and
Okay.
inclusion.
All right. Um,
And then can I
It's really
say
just
one more point?
okay. Well, yeah.
It's a semantic change, not a content change.
Well, I don't know. And I'd have to get a temperature check from people like NAACP and LULAC and others, because they're especially they've even had, I've seen these cartoons that talk about the difference between equality and equity, like kids, like different sized people trying to watch a baseball game being given different different size or different height platforms to stand on, versus getting the same platform to stand on. There's some equity and equality. So,
That's
Okay,
exactly the one. But the nothing has been removed from the content. It's just the
Alright.
name of this piece. So it's still in there. It's still part of it. It just takes some of the potential drama away from calling it something that, well, there are people like you who understand what equity is, and you've seen the presentations and examples. There are a lot of people who they call equity anti-white racism or
Social
something like
engineering.
that. I have heard that said more times this past few weeks than I'd like to hear. And just because it isn't really all these things, but people have taken it and made it mean things. Like you've seen this happen with a lot of other terms as well in recent history. But
is there
It's a
anything,
temperature down a bit.
is this something that came out of the comments received from the survey?
no, this is
Actually,
something that
yeah.
I
Or is this
reached out to.
speculation?
No, well, this is something that when I reached out to Chris about it, it's something that we're seeing nationally, and equity is being used nationally to, and even within our local community, it's being used against school boards when they talk about equitable policies and stuff for people that kind of tie it in with, critical race theory and all of these other things. And it's not. And I don't want them to be confused about what the county's trying to do as well, because, the average citizen, like Chris said, doesn't, understand what equitable policies are. And so that's why it came up. Then if everybody wants to leave it in, I'm fine. I really would like to see the office be implemented, and I don't want, and I wouldn't want to have, campaigns that are tying it to critical race theory and all that other stuff.
Can I check?
Can I just wrap up one little piece? Like this was intended to be an adjustment based on the survey and other input from the subcommittee. And to your question that you asked, Chuck, there was content in the comments from the survey that indicated misunderstanding of equity to this end, to the point of someone calling equity unconstitutional and someone saying that diversity and equity breed hate towards white people, things like that.
Well, you're going to get that anyway. I mean, I looked at the comments,
Right.
and they overwhelmingly were supporting a DEI proposal.
But the point was to have this discussion. We can always turn back to DEI as a thing if we need to, which we can discuss at the meeting on Monday, perhaps.
But I understand wanting this to be a successful proposal. So let's talk it through one more time.
Oh, sorry. Can I just give a couple comments? Because I know, sorry, you can't see hands raised. So my thought on this, I appreciate what they're saying. I don't think it's our responsibility to, and I hate using this word, but I'm going to use the term kind of like water down the language in the proposal to make people feel more comfortable with it. I understand we want it to pass. Oh, of course, sorry. Anyway, that was just my comment. I don't think that we need to water it down to hope that it doesn't rub people the wrong way, is kind of what I'm thinking. So if we need to reword things and do something different, that's fine. But not understanding what equity means is not the same as like not understanding what partisan means. I mean, people don't understand it and are politicizing it, and I get that. But I think by removing that, I think that that's a critical piece of what this whole discussion has been surrounding. And by removing it even from the title, if it really does the same thing, that worries me. So.
And I respect that, and I agree with it, and it might just be my fears, Deanna, that are surfacing, right? And I don't want that to happen. So I'm not really willing to like die on this hill. I do want to let you know that like Multnomah County, which was for they don't call it DEI, they call it DE. There's no inclusion. It's a diversity equity department. So I mean,
I'd like to hear Kim's opinion on this too.
Thank you. Yeah, I can definitely see both. And honestly, this is like I know I missed the last DEI meeting because I had a work conflict.
Well, there's
So
only two of us and this didn't come up, so I can
oh,
tell you.
okay. Yeah, I can see both points for sure. I think if we're gonna, you said our next meeting's at noon.
Monday, yeah.
Yeah, on Monday. So I'd like to give it a little bit more thought and maybe at that meeting focus on, what our final, um, because I definitely can see both ways. And I haven't really thought about this before until now. So I'm kind of one of those like sit and think about it for a little bit and then I'll have a better idea.
Okay, you'll give
Chris,
it to noon on Monday to think about it.
Okay, thank
Chris,
you.
Chris, who else brought it up? You said other people brought it up.
I thought I chatted about it with I guess maybe it was just you, Terry, but
Okay.
but the comments that came up,
Okay.
and it's come up in other situations too.
Okay. And
It's not.
I would love to leave it DEI. And it's my fears. Sorry. And thank you for helping me relieve some fears, Deanna.
So anyway, everybody who's on the DEI committee, chew on it over the weekend, think on it, do whatever you need to do, meditate, trip out or whatever you want to do on it. Just be ready by noon on Monday to through.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so I want to move us to our last one, which has circulated among the both the districts committee and the council chair. So it's gotten input from both of them. Does anybody need to go through this, or have you had it? Been through this enough to know what it's trying to do?
Um, I was looking at the wording in the proposed ballot measure, and I thought, wow, that's a lot there for most of
It's
the
a
other ones
lot.
are there. But after reading it, it it says what it's supposed to do.
Yeah,
I
this
don't
is
know if you could get it any shorter or not. I thought about it, and then
I
but I didn't think.
tried, and the thing is, you have to describe what's in this. This is the risk we run in whether or not we're presenting something that's multiple issues in
Yeah.
one measure. And so what this is doing is saying, this is one measure. And I was telling somebody who emailed me earlier today, who seems to watch all of these meetings, wondering, well, what is, because was in the presentation on Wednesday and what was in the survey was really confusing. And so I said, really what this is, it's if A, then B, which also means C and D have to happen. So in this case, the proposal is to go to 5 districts. Get to 5 districts, we need to change the countywide chair to a 5th district representative. But when we do that, we also change what's in the provisions in the charter for the countywide chair, and it changes the makeup of the Charter Review Commission. So that really is if A, then B, then begat C and D. That's what this is trying to say, but in one paragraph.
So, do you have the salary change in this one? I didn't
Yes.
down below. Okay.
I put in a replace in its entirety that everybody gets paid the same. And, that's what I did, Doug. What I did was, because this is where that 20% provision came in, I basically just replaced that in its entirety. But we can't just go vote in an amendment and then give somebody a cut in pay because they've already been elected under a different pay. So it gives a provision in here
Oh yeah, that's right.
that says that they will remain with the position until the end of next year. Whoops. Oh yeah, as of December 31st, that's the person in that position. They will keep that 20% until their term is over, which would be the end of December 2022. And then it just goes back to same compensation for all districts.
At the end of December 31st, 2021.
Yeah, that's, yes, as of that. So if the current chair
Okay.
vacates her position, whoever gets appointed to that position would be the person in that position as of December 31st,
Yeah,
whoever it is.
yeah. If you scroll back up to the top there, I
Which
was
one?
all the way up. Uh,
To the, where am I going?
all the way to the top of the document.
All right.
Um, what I was thinking, should after they read that again, but you look at the proposed ballot measure, it says five district council. Should this amendment, let's see, should this amendment establish a 5 district council or something? I didn't know if down there where it says should this amendment be, so that people would again know specifically what they're going to be yes or no on.
Well, this is,
I
this is
after
the
reading
amendment.
all,
This is
yeah,
the amendment right here.
yeah, I know. But I just thought, would that lose people by the time they get through there? Okay, now what am I supposed to be doing? Voting for or against, or what does this amendment do? I just hope people read it.
Yeah, and I tried to tighten that up because this actually was a lot longer, and
Yeah,
you can't lose anything
right.
because this is everything that has to change with this
Yeah,
proposal.
yeah. I think it's fine. It's just I just couldn't figure out another way of in a short
So
amount of time to figure out how to scale it down, but you can't.
um, you'll notice that there is some reason why this is here in the explanatory text. Also, I stuck in how this map was created, which, where did I put it? Basically, somewhere in here it talks about that this map complies with state law, which I sent around to the districts committee. There's an RCW that sets up the criteria for redistricting. And so this map was actually developed consistent with that RCW. So it does balance population, but there are several other things that are in that RCW, such as trying to keep things geographically contiguous, trying to address natural boundaries or other types of boundaries. So in essence, the criteria is set up to prevent gerrymandering. And so I know there's been a couple of people I've talked about, well, why can't you have radial spokes, or why can't you put District 1 on the west side of I-5 and then do something different? This is really set up to take based on a redistricting plan consistent with state law. It's not creating a whole different plan. It's redistricting so that we match the criteria that are set up in state law. And then what you
Uh,
haven't seen before is the list of precincts. If you really want to go through that list, none of them are split. So what's the
Ch-
question, Doug?
well, no, nothing on this one. I was going to jump back to clarity. I think Greg is going to have some additional things he'd like to put in because they've, through the process that the commissioners or counselors have been going through because they're going to be submitting some proposals on this ballot too, some changes to the charter.
Well, if they get 4 votes to do so.
Well, he has noticed some processings that need to be clarified, and so he's going to be notifying you and me about that. And I'll
I
get
need to
that
do it
back out
before
to the.
noon on Monday.
Yeah, well, I think
Really?
he's probably working on it right now,
All right.
and will get it to us. So I'll get it back out to the Clarity Committee so they could have another shot at that. I just wanted to point out on the Clarity Committee on that, the RCWs there, that was to add clarity to the budgeting process. That's in statute. It's what they do already, but it just sort of spells it out a little clearer in the finance section because it's pretty meek, the finance section. So the Clarity Committee felt that by just putting in the process, because the reader, when they are reading it, that this would be a little bit better understanding of how the process works in terms of funding government. And
Sorry,
I'll,
the grammarian in me.
yeah, and so I mean it's there in statute. It's just adding those statutes just to add a little more clarity because it sort of the way it is right now. It's there's tends to be holes in that finance area, and I think they just sort of threw it together just to have something about finance. And I know they were struggling and called me up and asked about the treasurer, but they stuck in a RCW that is only one of many RCWs, and that's why I wanted to get rid of that particular
Right.
RCW when you're talking about duties, because there's probably 1,000 laws that an elected official has to perform under. So anyway, and I'll strike out that salary area, make sure that that's corrected.
Yeah.
And there may be a few other little, oh, and I'll change that from 20, from
And why it's
21 to
dangerous.
22, the prosecuting attorney. Unless you want to have a different date and make them do it sooner,
It's up,
by June
up
30th.
to you, but I just noted that the freeholders gave them a year last time, and
Okay.
maybe they don't need a whole year this time because that was a whole change in government structure
Yeah,
last
I
time.
I don't think there'll be as much.
But you notice in the ethics, we give them until July 31st. I just picked that out of the air. There's no reason or rhyme for that date. It's just an arbitrary give them 7 months to figure it out.
Well, I got two members of the committee. Do they want to keep that date or give them a full year, or do you want to think that they could get it done in 6 months to update this, not lollygagging around,
Actually, make
put
that
pressure on
change.
our prosecutors? I'm okay whichever way.
Well, I'll let you guys chew on it until noon on Monday.
Okay.
All right, that's it. That's all that we have. We have 7.
I have one more question, Chuck.
All right.
When we're talking about these commissions, for DEI, and we're talking about these commissions for the ethics committee, I know I saw somewhere some language around commissions, kind of saying that they're unpaid, that they would be compensated for some, and does that need to go in these as well, or is that something that's already understood? Because I think
I'm not aware that they, other than the Charter Review Commission, which will serve without salary, I'm not aware that there's anywhere else in the charter that talks about commissions and whether they get a stipend or not. I think
Yeah,
that's,
I think that's a counselor decision because they control the budget and it's a budget item.
yeah. So if they
Okay,
choose to
'cause I
pay
just-
stipends, they can do that as a policy decision.
Okay,
Probably.
because I just remember seeing at one point somebody proposed this language around commissions, and it's like, that was a long time ago, but I
Yeah,
don't see it.
and when Greg Kimsey and I had a long discussion about that, he strongly encouraged us to stay away from talking about salaries
Okay.
pretty much at all.
Yeah, was it Clallam County when they brought up salaries for their counselors? It went down by 73% of the vote of the public.
I don't think that was, I don't know, well, it wasn't Clelm on this last ballot. But I can tell you
Maybe it was
that
Whatcom. Maybe it was Whatcom.
it might have been Whatcom, but Clallam County had 6 measures. 4 of them passed and 2 failed. And one of the ones that failed was the changing the charter review from 5 to 8 years.
Oh,
Oh,
Originally it was 10, then they went to 5, and then they had a proposal apparently by the majority of the Charter Review Commission last year that said, let's take it to 8, but it failed. The other thing that failed was they put a measure on the ballot to repeal the charter, which in Clones County, they say you need 35% signatures of the last gubernatorial election to put on the ballot. Somebody wanted to change that to 20, and it failed even worse than the charter review change failed. So people do react
Okay.
to the measures.
okay, good to know.
well, it'll be interesting because we'll have different set of voters voting for first phase than we will have second phase.
How do you know that?
Just because in even years they tend to have more voters.
Same number, well, same number, be same number, or eligibility will be the same. Unless there is
Oh,
a
well,
charter
right.
amendment that I've
Yeah.
heard that the county council is considering, which would change the who votes on an ordinance or a referendum or initiative based on whether they're in the unincorporated area and where the ordinance applies. But at this point, these charter amendments will be available this year and next year for everybody in the county to vote on.
I agree, but I'm just saying that general turnout of votes.
Yeah, well, we
Yeah.
we can't put that in our messaging, but yes, I agree that municipal. Well, I'm going to stop recordings. I think our meeting's pretty much done, right?
Yes.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank
All
you.
right, so I'm going to stop. Anything else for the